Okay, well, we've reached 11:30, so I'm going to kick off and just say welcome everybody to this Consalia webinar, where we're going to be discussing the B2B Sales Professional Degree Apprenticeship. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a level 6 degree apprenticeship. It's focused wholly on B2B, that's business to business sales, and it's delivered by Consalia in partnership with Middlesex University. And I'm really pleased to welcome and delighted to say that we've got three very knowledgeable guests from Siemens Digital Industries with us today. So Mike Eastham, Lucas Laurie, and Johnny Matheson. And they're going to be able to share their insights with us. And we've got Mike and Lucas, their apprenticeships. John is the early careers manager. So we're going to be able to get some great insights from both sides of the apprenticeship program. So really, before we move into the discussion, I'd love to ask them to introduce themselves to you, just say a few words about themselves and their role. So Johnny, can I start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Louise. My name's Johnny Matheson. I'm the Early Career Professionals Manager for Siemens PLC Digital Industries. And basically my role is to manage all graduate, apprenticeship, cross-border international projects, anything to do with apprenticeships and graduates, really. That's my role on a day-to-day basis.
Sounds huge, but yeah, thank you, Johnny. And Mike, I'll move over to you.
Yep, so good morning, everyone. My name's Mike Eastham, and I'm a sales apprentice at Siemens Digital Industries. Joined about 3 years ago now, and for the last year and for the foreseeable future, I am working as a sales specialist for process control systems. So our main customers are chemical plants, pharmaceutical plants, things like that. And it's basically my role to be the customer-facing expert on those products. So yeah, happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. And Lucas.
Yes, so morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name's Lucas Laurie, and I'm also, just like Mike, a third-year sales apprentice within the business, working on the Level 6 scheme from Consalia. My day-to-day role is in our inside sales team, looking after a number of accounts in a virtual environment. So those accounts are in various different industries, from, let's say, water and wastewater all the way to oil and gas or machine building, for example. And my role is to grow those accounts and bring in other resources within the business. So whether it is a sales specialist like Mike, who can talk more in depth about specific technology within the portfolio. That's my role.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks all. So the plan for the webinar is that I'm going to start the discussions with a few questions for Mike, Lucas, and Johnny. But we really hope that those of you listening will put some questions as well into the Zoom chat so we can generate a really informative dialogue about the program and really just try and get different aspects coming through this conversation. So I'm going to start now, if it's okay with you, Lucas and Mike, and really start to think about your experience as apprentices on the program. So just to position it, as you said, you're third-year apprentices, so you're moving now into the final, we were talking about this just before, weren't we, Lucas, into the final 2 modules of the program. Mm-hmm. So the end's in sight. You can almost feel that endpoint assessment is going to happen. But what that means is you've completed the Consalia modules, you've completed the sales content of the program. So I'm just really keen to know what your key learnings are from the apprenticeship. And it could be about sales. It could also just be about general personal development. So it'd be just great to get your key learnings from that. So Lucas, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. And it's a good question. I think it's such a big question because the apprenticeship's covered so many things. So if I was to break it down into maybe year 1, 2, and 3, I think year 1 was a brilliant starting point for us to get a grasp of, okay, what actually is business-to-business sales and what does a salesperson do? Because we all walk in the front doors knowing that we've got to sell something, but what does that actually look like? How do we negotiate? How do you actually encourage someone to buy something? What do you need to do? So that was what year 1 painted a really good picture to us of. Year 2 was then about becoming more strategic within that. So now I've got a fundamental idea of what we're doing. How do I identify the right people? How do I know they're the right people? what do we need to do to change those relationships to make that buying power more or increase their buyer intent. And then the third year was really about how sales became more beneficial for the business. So it's going from, yeah, here's the target number and here's what I want to sell, but how do we actually do that profitably for the business and profitably for the customer as well? So how do we explore, different commercial strategies and business strategies to be able to deliver a cost-effective project for both the customer but also profitably for the business? So that's how I'd sort of summarize the key takeaways across the 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's great to break it down by the years. That's really helpful. And what about some of those personal things around reflective practice and critical thinking? Do you think you've also helped to develop that through the program?
Absolutely. I think it's almost like the DNA of the program to have reflection within your practice. So it's quite emphasized within the assignments, for example, but making sure that you're able to do that, and it's a kind of a mandatory thing. It constantly gives you evidence to draw on. So when you're reflecting, you'll give models and you'll give evidence of what you've done, for example, and it's a constant point that you can sort of refer back to. And also within the KSBs as well, you're providing evidence of what you've done, and I think by doing that, it just reinforces the learning that you've got, and it's always a point you can go back to. So by all means, yes, and I also think that it flows very much throughout the organisation as well, because you're almost acting as a secondary teacher to others in the workplace. So there's a lot more that you can relay on to others that again helps with the positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. So, Mike, what about you? What are your key takeaways so far from the program?
I think the one that's aligned most with what Siemens have been doing is the sort of background and why sales is changing. I've had all sorts of odd jobs. I sold phones as my first job. I worked in McDonald's, worked in a pub, and across all of that, it's you're selling a product or a meal or a pint just for the sake of selling a pint. There's not much value to be had in that. So and Siemens historically have been a very product focused business. We focus so much on the technology. We really try and sell all these features that come with some of our products. But the main thing that I've taken away from Consalia is the new way of sales. The importance of delivering value for our customers, the importance of having the right mindsets, authenticity, customer centricity, why they're so important for our customers, and using all that to sort of understand the importance of delivering really good experiences for our customers when we're interacting with them. So, that the new way of selling has been my key takeaway, and I've tried to fit to that throughout the program, and we'll always try and stick to that moving forward.
Okay, that's fantastic. I think some people might challenge you on no value in the sale of a pint, but anyway, particularly last night, perhaps,
myself included.
But, yeah. But okay, great. So I think it was you, Lucas, that mentioned the assignments that you have. So the way the program is structured, for those that don't know, is that there is a work-based project at the end of each module. And so I took the liberty of reading your last assignments, Mike and Lucas, I hope you don't mind, just before this call, and found them really interesting. And so I just wanted to ask you both a little bit about that. And Mike, you mentioned in yours about a Siemens customer experience initiative called Turn the Dial.
Yes, that's right.
And I just thought you mentioned that you presented it, I think, internally as well as to some of your customers. So I just thought you could maybe just share a little bit about that, because that sounds super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. After the customer experience module we had about September of last year, I was absolutely all over customer experience following that. I couldn't get enough of finding out what we were doing about it, and more importantly, what we can do to make things better for our customers. And one such initiative is this program we've got called Turn the Dial. And it's a Siemens DIY customer experience initiative. We've seen McKinsey stats, successful projects for optimizing customer experience. I think it's typically achieved 5 to 10% revenue growth and 15 to 25% cost reductions in 2 to 5 years or something like that. So, it's in the business interest to pursue a customer experience initiative. However, on an individual level, the saying that people buy from people is as true as ever. And, making our customers' lives easier makes our lives easier ultimately. And that's the focus of Turn the Dial. one thing we learned from the customer experience workshop with Consalia was that the definition customer experience is the cumulative, you know what word I'm trying to say, cumulative impact of multiple touch points over time that results in a real relationship feeling or a lack of it. And Turn the Dial is about making sure people in the organization are aware that they can have an impact on customer experience, whether they're customer facing or not. And how the team behind Turn the Dial have done this is by holding workshops across the business, getting people's thoughts on the matter and playing out different scenarios, like whether to email or call a customer, depending on said scenario, and the impact that that can have. So the whole underlining phrase behind it is that you don't have to be customer facing to be customer focused. And yeah, I mean, I've tried to sort of bring improving customer experience to my customers. So in the distributed control systems business, we have a lot of different solution partners. So they'll buy products from us, engineer and integrate the solution into their customers' site. And we had some of our solution partners in the Manchester office last November, and I presented for 10-15 minutes on customer experience, but the aim of the game for me was find out what they think we can do better. So I talked about the importance of customer experience, and then we had a good 15-20 minute conversation. We had a poll, like feedback form kind of thing, and we talked through what they think we could be doing better. And you know, I think they appreciated the directness of just asking, and you know, based on some of the feedback that we got, one of which was more interaction between Siemens and our solution partners. We've started doing that. We've you know, we hold more regular meetings with them. We're giving them more sort of webinars and stuff. But you know, asking them what can we do better that we're not doing currently to make sure you guys are having a better experience. We've got some really good feedback from that, and we're starting to implement it. So I like to think that we are actively improving the experience for our customers.
That's fantastic. And I always love reading those kind of outcomes that come from the project. Obviously the initiative was happening anyway, but it's just great to read that. And I love as well when apprentices share that they are an apprentice with the customers. I think we hear so much positive feedback when that's the customers are aware and they get interested in the program as well. It's always great to hear of that. So Lucas, in yours, you also talked about how you introduced some frameworks and how you've used them. So specifically third box thinking and the customer strategy grid. And that's really helped you prioritize your portfolio. So I just thought maybe you could just explain a little bit about that. So again, people can see the benefits from the content of the modules. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. And I think when it comes to prioritizing your portfolio of accounts, it's very easy to go off solely financial metrics. So you might be thinking about thermographic information that might be employee headcount growth, revenue growth, the share of wallet of your business, and all these financial metrics that might make one customer more attractive than another, or it might fit into an ideal customer profile. But I think these kind of models and theories very much help with what's non-financial and all about the customer's world. So Paul Nicholas spoke a lot about this in our module, standing in the customer's shoes. And it's very much that something we try and take on as a business as well. So we call it customer's world. And when we think about third box thinking, we're thinking about the customer, what we can deliver, but it opens up the customer's customer as well. So what is our customer actually trying to achieve for their customer to make them more competitive, improve their customer success? And for example, the customer strategy grid allows us to pick apart what our customer's business looks like, where we see risks, where we see opportunity, and how we can try and do that with different strategies to deliver something that's successful for them. So really these two models are linked, and it's all about understanding the customer's world. So for us in a technology business, it's about putting the technology aside, genuinely what's relevant to our customer, what are their operational challenges, what are their operational focuses, but it's about understanding what their desire to change is actually like. So you can have all the financial data that suggests a customer is a high potential account, for example, but if there's no desire to change and there's no compelling reason that can be created, it's going to be very difficult to sell into that account. So technology aside, financial metrics aside, how do we get a really good understanding of what our customer's environment looks like before we speak to them and as we speak to them, to bring these proposals into them, or thoughts that we have, that we can then start to pinpoint with them. Yeah, we can bring in a few ideas, a few tools to help engage those accounts. And even if there's one or two things that, okay, from an external point, we might have estimated to be, yeah, this is what we see as an opportunity, where they might disagree, it will always open up a new conversation with them, where they can just ultimately tell us more about what they're trying to do. So really, it's been a great way for us to get customers to speak more in the room, or in the virtual room in my case, but get under the bonnet of what they're doing and just open up the wider conversation. So yes, we can demonstrate that we're thinking holistically about them and their customer, but also we can start to have some ideas on proposing, different things with them, and ideas that gain us more credibility as salespeople from a supplier or a potential supplier organization.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And it's all about generating those customer insights, isn't it, to help with those conversations. So, but thanks, Lucas. It's really, I love it when as I say, when I read the projects and I really see that the tools are being used, and it's just, it makes it all worthwhile. So you're in our 10th cohort 10. Paul Nicholas, that you just mentioned, is your tutor, the Consali tutor that's been with you all the time. But cohort 10, it's an open cohort, so there are a number of organisations in that cohort. And I just wondered if you think that's helped develop your knowledge, being part of an open cohort with other organisations. So, Lucas, you're on my screen right now, so do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I think where we find the most benefit is that everybody's selling something completely different, really. I mean, there's some industries that are related. For example, us as a technology supplier, we've got some people in the cohort in food and beverage companies. So we can start to understand, okay, we understand a little bit from an operational perspective what they're doing. We've got people from completely different industries where they're selling more commodity hardware. We've got people doing cloud migration. Where we see the benefit between us is that there's always a different type of sell. It's always good to hear people's general practices. And always in the cohorts, you'll hear somebody say, "Oh, my manager recommended this," or "This is what they told. This is what they were told when they were, an apprentice or right at the early stage in their career." And some of these different practices to hear, just general idea sharing, or "Oh, this is what we've been doing with a customer," even though they're different industries, a lot of it's still the same, and a lot of it's still, generally, how do we get closer to understanding the customer? How do we get close to building trust with them? So all these off practices that we hear from people and share in these sessions is always really, really good. Also, what's nice as well, there's always a little bit of a competitive nature across the cohort as well. So it's always, what people are working on, what recent successes people have had. And I think it kind of encourages people to constantly think about, okay, how do I make myself better? And ultimately, how do we work with our teams and colleagues to create more customer success? So I think those are the real highlights of working in the open cohort for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. I bet there's some intercompany competition as well, I'm sure. But yeah, Mike, what about you? What are your thoughts about the open cohort?
I think it's worked really well. It gives that little bit more of the traditional university feel where you're rocking up on the first day and you barely know anyone. But we all get on really well with each other as well, which is an absolute godsend. We speak to each other all the time, ask each other questions, help each other out. We're all friends, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I look forward to seeing everyone whenever we go down for a Consalia module, and I think that little bit of excitement helps contribute to my engagement during the workshops. But, more than anything, we help each other out. If I can get my words out, we give each other guidance, and, we try and make sure no one's left behind. But yeah, and I think, it's really worked well as an open cohort.
Yeah, no, I think that peer support, it's really important, and I think does make a big difference, as you say, to the experience of the apprentices. I'm sure you've been asked this loads of times, Mike, but why did you choose an apprenticeship when you were thinking about what to do after you? Well, you mentioned a few jobs that you've had with McDonald's and working, selling phones and things, but what made you choose this apprenticeship program?
Well, I actually went to university straight out of college. I, for some reason decided when I was 15 that being a pilot might be cool. So I picked me A-level choices and then went to study aerospace engineering for a couple of years. And, I had I did all right grades wise, but it just really wasn't for me. And, you know, I stuck it out far longer than I should have done. But then when I dropped out, you know, a friend of mine had also gone to uni and dropped out after a year and got an apprenticeship, and he'd done really well out of it. You know, he was absolutely living the dream. So I thought, right, I need a degree, but I need to, you know, make something on myself as well, rather than just coming out of a university course with a degree and no experience. So, you know, prior experience selling phones and that, and Siemens offered me the job for the sales apprenticeship. I thought, if I can do all right at Carphone Warehouse by giving it 40% on a Saturday, what can I get out of it if I give it, you know, give it everything? And I've tried to bring that into the apprenticeship, and I think it's really worked out well for me. So, yeah, it wasn't my first choice to pick an apprenticeship, but I'm bloody glad that I did.
That's fantastic. That's really great to hear that. What were your reasons, Lucas?
Yeah, slightly different to Mike. So I was still in sixth form when I was sort of making the decisions, and we had lockdown, we had the first COVID outbreak, and in that time, you know, I sat there and I realised that people still had disposable income, they're on furlough, and I then started a car balloting business of my own. So when restrictions started to ease, I'd go out and I'd drive around in my car all day, I'd pass my test, I'd go and sell my service to customers. You'd leave the house with all your equipment first thing, and you'd come back late at night. And if you'd done well, you'd try to make efforts to cross-sell. You know, whilst I'm here, I've got my stuff. I'll snowflow and jet wash your wheelie bin for an extra tenner, for example. And after a bit of time, you realise that, okay, I'm starting to sell a service to people, and based on the quality of that service, I'm either going to win business, I'm going to get repeat business, or I'm not. And from that point, I started to look at sales roles, sales apprenticeships, and lo and behold, I found the one at Siemens. Now, something I forgot to mention as well, when I was doing my A-levels, I'd originally geared up to do almost like a professional golf career. It was always what I wanted to do. And when I realised that that wasn't really a possible thing for me, it was all about back to square one, don't really know what I want to do, but I don't want it to be anything related to golf. So how do I find something new? And obviously at that time, I then started to do the car washing business, and you start to run your own, and you're almost master of your own days. You know, it's constantly about having your calendar booked up, making sure you can get paid tomorrow as well as today. And I started to really enjoy that and just have it as an alternative. And obviously, you know, speaking to more people, attending some of the networking events, finding some phone numbers, I could then start to hunt for some of those opportunities. But the core reasons, I never really saw university as an option for me. I'm not particularly academic, but I wanted to be quick out the blocks, you know, develop my career quickly and really develop genuine skills from experience rather than solely a university route. And this option was the best because I could do that and combine it with theory and academia as well, which I can then obviously pass on to colleagues in the workforce. So it's been a really good couple of years.
Wow, that's fantastic. I had no idea of your stories. When I kind of put that question in, I was thinking, oh yeah, it'd be great to see what the reasons are, but to know the history that you've gone through to get to the program is fantastic. And I love the fact that the program will support school leavers. It will support what we call maybe second jobbers and people who've gone through university before. You know, it can meet all those needs. But thanks, that's great stories. Johnny, that must make you super proud, actually, hearing all of that.
Yeah, it's as I said earlier, it's really only to be expected from Mike and Lucas. Really, they're two top, not just apprentices but individuals as well. And we're very proud of them. To be honest, they probably don't say that enough, but we are.
Yeah.
So just the way they speak, really. We're not just trying to bring salespeople in, if you like. We're trying to create people that can go onto a platform like this and talk to everybody. You know, and we give them the kind of tools and the opportunity to do that. And it's when I see that, it's obviously working. Yeah. So yeah, great for me.
It is. So Johnny, I went onto your LinkedIn profile just obviously to kind of before today's session. And it says here you've got 20 plus years of professional experience in education, learning and development. I was a bit daunted when I started to read this. I was like, gosh, here I am talking to you. 20 years of working in apprenticeships. I've got 8. So I was like, oh, you're going to be telling me so much. And then working across the apprenticeship standards as well, EPAs and EPAOs. So amazing background in in apprenticeships, and you're managing, as you said at the beginning, all the early career professionals, the graduates, as well as the apprenticeships. So huge. How many apprenticeship schemes do you have running at
Well, we've got apprenticeships from level 2 to level 7 across all functions, really, Louise. Sales apprenticeships, as you know, business, various different levels of engineering and types of engineering apprenticeships, health and safety, IT and cyber security, management. We're also a training provider in our own right. So I do a lot of work with a training provider for a degree engineering apprenticeships in terms of the management and guidance of that. I manage we've got an E3 program where we bring people for our graduate scheme in like 2-3 years early. So they work like 3 summers, then go naturally progress to the graduate scheme.
Yeah.
And we've just interviewed yesterday, as it happens, for 2025 intake. So we're kind of a year ahead of the curve, really. I manage the International Tech Talent Programme, where we get our graduates involved in cross-border projects with different apprentices and graduates from all over the world. And I know Lucas and the apprentices are involved in that as well, Lucas and Mike. And our other 2 apprentices, Orla and Millie, were heavily involved in that. In fact, the UK always take over these projects. That's always the feedback that I get, and they kind of run the project. So it's great for networking, more experience, just dealing with different people and cultures. So it's really, really important, actually. That's my role, really.
Yeah. Keeps you busy, definitely.
It keeps
So we've got, I think, 9 apprentices from Siemens across 4 cohorts now, and another 6 to join in the autumn, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
What made you consider the level 6, the B2B sales professional apprenticeship?
Well, I think straight away it kind of stretches and challenges our apprentices that we bring in. I like it, it's academic, but it's more of kind of practical experience of what you're learning when you're at university. And it encourages kind of collaboration and opportunities learned from others. And I've mapped that into a rotational program for our sales apprentices. And it seems to work really, really well, actually. We're very passionate about sales. We're a digital industries business. We've got lots of customers, so we're passionate about sales, but we really want our apprentices to shape the future of the company, really. And we just find this is a really good fit. It allows our apprentices to look at our company and look for opportunities for growth going forward.
Okay, that's great. So you've got a rotational program for them on the B2B. So how many rotations do they go through?
It's really kind of limitless. Really, we're in digital industries, for instance, there's like 5 major departments, but each department's broken down into separate sections. So whenever there's a project, and I work a lot with line managers and placement managers to make sure everything that the sales apprentices in particular do aligns to the KSBs and gives them good experience. What we've looked for like Mike and Lucas, Orla and Millie, are kind of long-term placements now that lead on to future roles full-time sooner rather than later, really. So I think the goal is for me to get these guys into full-time roles, but they'll still be apprentices until they finish their endpoint assessment. Okay. And then it's just a natural progression for them onto a role that they're probably already doing. So that's how we plan it. But it is well planned. It can be anything from factory automation to control techniques to technical support. Where we're dealing with customers and we're selling, then that's where these guys come in and our placements come in as well.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So Mike and Lucas, they shared some benefits from organizational benefits from their projects. Are there any that you can think of, sort of tangible benefits or intangible of having the apprentices there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've made a couple of notes actually, because I took some kind of feedback from people that Mike and Lucas work with. So that what we find is that bringing the sales apprentices in, the B2B sales apprentices in particular, it helps streamline the sales process, because they're used to use the most up-to-date technology and data available. So it reduces the time they spend with processing orders and delivery and ordering and payment processing and billing functions, and which ultimately lowers business costs and increases profit for us. And as I said earlier, I think it's a different mindset when you bring early career professionals in, certainly in the mould of Mike and Lucas, because they can see the future for Siemens, you know, and they're looking for people to deliver, you know, exceptional sales experience, because ultimately that's going to be our brand and increase the likelihood of repeat business and referrals. So these guys are crucial and so important to our future, you know, in the next 5-6 years, really. But I work on a pipeline document on a regular basis, and we reckon that 25% of our current roles won't be available in the next 4 to 5 years. So by bringing people like Mike and Lucas into the business and retraining and reskilling our current staff, that's where we see new roles coming in. And certainly these guys on the call today will fill these roles. So it's said that the B2B sales professional apprenticeship really sets these guys up for a very long future within Siemens at different levels. So yeah, I'm very positive about it.
Okay, that's fantastic to hear. That's a phenomenal number of roles that are going to be disappearing, but you know, and as we talked about it, it's kind of restructuring and also a bit of AI and others, but new roles also being created. So, yeah, that's great. And you're right, with the apprentices, they look to the future, and that's fantastic. And I can see that through the projects that they deliver as well. So just, you know, there's always a challenge that's written about with sales and recruiting and developing sales talent. So how do you think the program has helped you address that specific challenge?
Well, I'll very quickly run through a recruitment process, okay, if that's okay, just for a minute or two. This year, for instance, we had 120 positions for early career professionals with 18,000 applicants. So just for Mike and Lucas to be sitting here is quite an exceptional achievement, to be honest. So how we get it from 18,000 down to the required assessment centre, then this is a process we go through. We've got an artificial intelligence gamification system that's based on our company values. It's almost like a game-like situation where if the candidates meet the requirements of the position, then they get sent a link to the gamification. After that process, we get the number down, and then it's artificial intelligence video interviews with 5 set questions. Now, after those interviews, myself and a team of the recruitment managers and talent acquisition team go through each video, and we base the next stage of assessment centres on, you know, our video analysis, basically. Now, once they get to the assessment centre, it's very kind of project driven. So we ask them to, one of the things we always ask them to do is build a bridge using set paper and paper cups, and it's got to hold a car. And it's not really about if the bridge can be built or stand. It's really about how they interact with each other and who takes the dominant role. Are they including everybody? You know, does everybody play a part? How do they know their strengths? What strengths do they show? At that stage, we make decisions on who gets sent to final interview. And at that point, we only get to see CVs at that point. We don't look at a CV until the final interview stage. Okay. And we just feel that removes any unconscious bias by reading CVs. And whether we like it or not, we've all got unconscious bias. So we take that out of the equation until the very final interview. Now, the interviews are based on our values, really. Our values are responsible, excellent, innovative. And that's what Siemens does really well. And that's, I think, Mike and Lucas kind of hit those three values all the time. They're very innovative, and they're coming up with new ways of looking at work and new ideas. And that's what Siemens, that's why we move and grow from strength to strength. During the interview process, it's a strength-based interview. It's not a traditional interview. And we look at 8 strengths in particular. We look at efficiency, initiative, self-improvement, collaboration, detail orientation, enthusiasm, empathy, and determination. And I don't want to hear about the big fault I always see in interviews is people talking about what they can't do as opposed to what they can do. So we always explain to them this is about strengths, not just in the workplace or volunteering. We want to hear for your personal life, your hobbies, what your strengths are, you know, how you collaborated in a team, how you showed empathy at a certain point. You can give any example, and we base follow-up questions on that, really. So what we've got away from is looking for candidates with hard skills, likes of, I would explain it like experience, because we believe these are kind of perishable hard skills and they can be refreshed at any point, and that's where we come in, really. We're more looking for the kind of softer skills, personality and aptitude, candidates who genuinely listen and respect customer needs. So that's what we've kind of rethought the last 2-3 years, how we recruit now. And I think the behaviours from the B2B apprenticeship match our values and the strengths that we look for, you know, really, really well, almost word for word, actually, with a couple of exceptions. But we just need people with a positive outlook, people that are adaptable, willing to take a chance, you know, people that say that they've never made a mistake, I've never made a decision, really. And that's, we want people to, you know, take ownership, make decisions. If it's the wrong decision, we'll reflect on it and they can move on from there. But we all still make mistakes. But ultimately, we're looking for professionals that can, you know, forecast realistic targets when it comes to sales, and also, you know, it's a results-driven environment, so they've got to thrive in that environment. So yeah, and always keep one step ahead of the competition. So that means constant CPD in our technology, our marketplace, our competitors, and I think you can see in the traits of Mike and Lucas, they certainly do that. So that's what we look for in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, that's great. That's quite a process. And Mike and Lucas, you obviously have memories of it, but to have got through that and be where you are now, it's, yeah, fantastic. I was just looking at the behaviors as you mentioned them, Johnny, yeah, and the behaviors for the standard are ethics, trust, integrity, management of self, interpersonal skills, and customer focus. So yeah, very much aligning with what you were looking for there. So that's great.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the easiest way to explain it is Siemens previously, if a problem was if we were one side of a river and we had to get to the other side of the river, traditionally we'd be looking for a bridge builder, you know, and we'd focus on the qualifications and years of experience of building bridges. Now we don't think like that. We look for somebody that's going to come up with alternatives to building a bridge, you know, and we just think that really promotes a kind of diversity thinking and innovation. And it matches our values. Really, innovation is a kind of key one there. So it's just a different way we've had to think about things over the last 3 years. And it's certainly, when I look at the early career professionals we bring into Siemens, they're fantastic, but they're very, very different in thinking. You know, we can put a problem up and we can get 10 different solutions very, very quickly, and that's what we need. You know, and that's always a good analogy that I use if I'm speaking to, you know, colleges or universities or potential early career professionals for us and other companies, that you've got to kind of, I hate the phrase thinking out the box, it's used, overused, but it's more innovation. Thinking just different solutions to the same problem. Really, that's what we look for.
Yeah, well, it's agility, isn't it, as well, and innovation, and agility is one of those key words for this year, I think, that people are talking about. But yeah, brilliant. So So Mike, so listening to all of that and listening to the future that's available or is, you know, there for you at Siemens, do you think that the program, or how do you think the program has helped you as a launch pad into that sales career?
I think the combination of the Consalia education and the Siemens trust that we've been given to go out and make the decisions with the risk of making a mistake, as Johnny said it, as you know, we're not just the apprentices that get given all the boring work. We're part of the furniture, and the trust we've been given alongside the education from that has you know, made us quite sort of empowered individuals, I think. Would you agree with that, Lucas?
Certainly would. Yeah, I certainly would. And I think the KSBs have been a great way for us to help with the kind of, like you say, Louise, the launch pad into sales. Because yes, the business and the academia help us bridge that gap to become empowered, like Mike said. But I think in order to pass the apprenticeship, you've got to have done all of those KSBs, and they're not just about how to sell, so to speak, and getting something, a project or a solution to someone, but it's more about how you work with others, how you best collaborate, you know, evaluating commercial strategies similar to what I mentioned earlier. And I think, you know, having that view rather than just here's a set of car keys, off you go, is a much better way to upskill and prepare us for full sales jobs. So I think the KSBs have been a hugely beneficial set of learning criteria for us to prepare, really. I know there was a question on that in the chat not too long ago, so maybe it's one for the Consalia team to answer. But I think, yeah, fundamentally the KSBs have been great building blocks for us.
Okay, that's brilliant. That's brilliant to hear an apprentice saying that they really enjoyed the KSBs and think they've got a lot from them. I love that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so Leah, I think you've asked if there's a KSB guide for the apprenticeship for the program, and there is. It is available on the IFATE website, or you can contact us direct, and we can send it across to you. So that would be great. And there's another question actually we could just take while we're going along. So how do you feel you have been supported with the academic side of the apprenticeship, and how is the balance with work? So I guess that's one for you, Mike and Lucas. So Mike, do you want to start? How do you feel you've been supported with the academic side? And
I haven't doubted for a second that we've got the full support of both Consalia, Middlesex and Siemens whenever we've needed it. You know, there's been a couple of times where I've had questions the night before assignments due, send an email over to Paul, get a response back quite promptly. As well, you know, certainly in first year when me and Lucas, you know, the breadth and depth of what we do as Siemens Digital Industries is massive. You know, there's a reason we've had an engineering focus for so long. But, you know, when we, in our first year, we weren't so much going out and trying to sell directly to customers. We were doing a lot of shadowing. And in that time, you know, for assignments, I'd speak to my line manager and say, look, I've got this assignment to do. What should I do it on? And he'd say, go and have a chat with so-and-so. He's got a project on at the minute. Tell him what you're doing and ask him if you can get involved with that. And so, yeah, the support has been there from day one. Yeah, no, it's been absolutely fantastic. The work-life balance as well has been really good. You know, one thing Siemens have always really insisted on with us as apprentices is that we get the one working day a week to focus on uni work. You know, it's not work 5 days a week and try and do a degree in your spare time. It's you know, we want you to have a good work-life balance. And, you know, I think so far I've been rather fortunate that I think across all 3 years, I've probably spent about one weekend on uni work. The rest of the time I've managed to do it in working time, much to my own dismay sometimes. But sometimes I'll go 3 weeks, 4 weeks without having a uni day, and then I'll spend a week on it. But, you know, it's part of that balance and the support we've been given that I'm able to do that. So, yeah, no, it's been absolutely fantastic.
And making it work with the role, the demands of the role. So if that's what you have to do. Lucas, how have you found the support that you've been getting in the program?
Very similar reasons to Mike. I think it's brilliant. So if anyone's unsure, the way it's structured is we get what's called 20% off the job learning. So that works out at roughly 1 day a week to do your studies. So whether that's your academic reading, your assignment preparation, KSBs, all that sort of stuff. So that works out a day a week, and that gives enough time to sort of find your feet and get everything done. I think in my experience, I've been less fortunate than Mike with one weekend, a few, but I think holistically there's a lot of support from Consalia. For example, if you're not sure on something, there's always the email support. And what's nice as well is if there's not something that's directly kind of usable for you to do in an assignment, if you've got a given title, there's always an element of free speech, so to speak, where you can message someone like Paul and say, Paul, here's the title of the assignment. I'm thinking I'd like to do it something around, it might be, let's say AI, for example, because that's what I'm doing in my job. Do you approve of that as a title? And usually most of the time is yes. So there's always an element of flexibility, as long as it's within the assessment marking criteria, where the purpose of the assignment can be slightly adapted to suit your role in your daily practice. So I think it becomes much more easy to write about things that are relevant, and therefore the takeaways are more valuable for you as well, because you're reflecting or you're making a change in the business in a given area. So I think with that kind of flexibility that Mike spoke about, we see that a lot from both Consalia and Siemens in our case.
Yeah, I mean, the titles of the projects or the assignment briefs are meant to be quite generic, so you can hone in and make it really relevant to your role. And it's that relevance, I think, that helps you complete it, because you can bring in the workplace experience, which is so good. I always say that a degree apprenticeship is much harder than completing an academic degree, because you are completing the degree and you've got your job as well. And it's not an easy thing. It's obviously very rewarding, but it's, I wouldn't say it's an easy option at all. I don't know, Mike, you've obviously had the university experience and then come on to the degree apprenticeship, but to manage the two, work and the studying, it's a balance, isn't it? And
it's not easy. And, we've been fortunate that with the support we've been given, that we're able to make it as easy as it can be. It's not easy by any stretch. But I think there are ways to manage it and make it work for you a lot more than with straight university.
Brilliant. So there's a couple of questions. Erin, I'm going to come to you next, but I'm just going to answer Leia's, because it kind of links in. Are there online lectures, webinars, class Zoom calls? So the way the program works is that with the Consalia modules, there's a workshop at the beginning of each module. And then the apprentices are supported with peer learning support sessions, where we bring the whole cohort together and the tutors facilitating those sessions. And there's also office hours to support the apprentices. And in parallel with that, there are Middlesex modules that's developing the professional portfolio, the evidence log for the apprentices. So there is constant contact between tutors and the apprentices. Would you agree with that, Mike and Lucas? I was just summing up quickly there. Yeah, brilliant. So Erin, you've asked, what products will Lucas and Mike be selling at Siemens? This is quite a tricky question, I think. And what will they take away from their degree to make them unique in the sales environment compared to others? I don't know. Who should answer that?
I don't mind starting.
Okay.
Go on, Lucas.
It's a vague one. So if you know what we're selling, great, because we don't. No, just kidding. The portfolio is massive, right? So there's products all the way from what we describe as factory automation. So it's more discrete. So if you think about a car factory where you're making a thing, it goes from start to end, all the way down to more what we call process automation, which is more about making stuff. So more chemical plants, water treatment, and that sort of thing. So you'll have these products within these markets, but then there's also solution delivery capabilities as well. So some of these range from a migration of an older system to a newer system, for example, like you'd expect in an IT environment. But there's also now much more creative business models as well for customers, where as a business, we can charge a customer based on the performance. So there's now performance guaranteed contracts that we're able to sell to customers. For example, one that's become very popular is what we call energy as a service. So you can go into a big industrial environment and look at a manufacturing facility that uses lots of real high energy consumption assets like big motors and compressors, fans, and within that project, Siemens engineers will go around. They'll have a look at the energy consumption. They'll have a look at what the products are, and they will then put a guarantee of performance on. So they might say, "We'll guarantee if you work on us with this contract, you will see, let's say, 50% reduction in energy." The customer won't pay a penny until they see that. And then above that, they can then pay us on, it's almost like a performance-related bonus. So there's really, really interesting business models. And it's not just now about a commodity, we've got a controller to sell to you as a box. It's very much now built into solutions and also these performance-related contracts as well. So it's changing quite a lot. Whereas if you were to go back 20 years ago, it was much more commodity, much more hardware-based. But the portfolio is so deep, like Mike alluded to. There's things almost every day that you find out that we offer as a business that you can charge as an additional service or something that you can offer for free. So it's a really, really huge portfolio. But if I was to summarize it, that's kind of how I'd say it, right, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. There is just so much stuff, and that's where sort of our roles differ slightly. Lucas is an account manager. It's his job to know the customers, know their applications, and know what topics to bring to them. Whereas as a sales specialist myself, it's my job to sort of look after the products, and Lucas would bring me in to talk in depth about the products. So, well, not just about the products, but, to deliver value based on the products, and it's my job to have that knowledge on how to do that. But to give a bit of insight into what I do, I look after process control systems. So if you think of a chemical plant or something like that, somewhere where there's a lot of tanks and pipes and heating and all sorts of things like that, well, on those tanks there's going to be pressure sensors, temperature sensors, level sensors. There's also going to be valves and pumps and all manner of what we call field devices like that. So we sell all them. We don't sell the tanks, unfortunately. You'll have to get one of them yourself. But then, all that instrumentation and things like that will feed into a controller, basically just a box that runs the show. And so, that's historically has been our bread and butter as Siemens, those programmable logic controllers that control the process. But then one layer above that, you'll have engineering system and an operator system where someone can interact with the process and have a view of what's going on and, understand what's going on in their plant and make the necessary changes to make sure things are running smoothly. And so, it's not just the grey boxes that we sell to people, it's the support and the insight and the services and all these good things that Siemens can provide. We're a massive company. We can go toe to toe on grey boxes with anyone, but it's the rest of the stuff that you get with Siemens, the support, the expertise, the service that, really help us
if I could just
excel.
come in there, I think that's where for the second half of that question, Mike, where the program can really help you. You said the support, the customer service, the customer experience, everything about that you get from the program is customer focused, because the program is it's solely focused on B2B sales and customer needs and the positive mindsets for sales, and just bringing in all that kind of key kind of fundamentals, isn't it, that will help you excel, I think, within.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I completely glossed over the second part of the question, but an example of one of the key takeaways from the degree is I'm driving up to the northeast to see a customer tomorrow, and their solution partner, they're a system integrator, they're very engineering focused. So my plan is going tomorrow and say, let's step away from the tech and let's bring it back to what the value is here. They've got some opportunities that have stalled, and we're going to try and give them the full support of Siemens to unstick them. But as part of that, I'm going to be, showing them some tools like Pestle and third box thinking, and just stepping away from the tech, stepping away from the engineering focus, and say, right, okay, what matters to this customer, and how can we unstick this opportunity and deliver value for them. So
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks for that. So, you know, Erin, I would say that what gives them the advantage, or what they will help them stand out from others, is the number of tools and frameworks and models that we give them, that they do bring in to their roles and their dealings with their customers. So I hope that answers that question. So we've just got 5 minutes left. So Phil's put in a question here. So about innovation. So is there anything you've studied that you think could enhance the program or the profession? So that's quite a broad question, but yeah. So maybe, I don't know, do you think there's anything that, I mean, when you think about well, let's think about the modules. Which one had the most impact on you in terms of, you know, helping you as a sales professional, so therefore enhancing the profession?
If I was to answer that, I would say, I now can't remember whether it was year 2 or year 3, but I'm thinking that the one where we had that day, we started to cover third box thinking, you, us, connect evidence, and painting the picture of how we get a message across to a customer and how it's relevant. So all that sort of content around Start With Why, Simon Sinek, everything about really understanding what makes a customer tick. That was definitely the icebreaker to me. How we innovate on that, I'm not particularly sure. I think the only way that we could possibly innovate it is to try and increase the reach it has within the business, because the content's definitely good enough. The content is highly relevant and applicable. How do we then create the echo wave into the next kind of section of employees in the business and the sales force? Because we've got our impact from an apprentice level in our day jobs, but sometimes getting through to the barrier of those that are out on the road and are much more remote, it's difficult to sit down and do these sorts of workshops with them. So if I was to answer the question on how we innovate and drive the change, I would possibly say it would be, I'd be very interested to learn how we try and create a second wave into those groups that are difficult to access. You know, what does a workshop look like? What does a skills assessment and an innovation workshop look like with them, for example?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we call that learning reach, that ripple effect of the learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's great. Mike, have you had a favorite module today?
I really like the last one, the strategic planning and business to business sales, I think. But you know, I don't think there's been a bad Consalia module, to be honest. I always look forward to going down, but I think I've definitely got the most out of the strategic planning, because it brings everything across all the other workshops together and wraps it up in a nice big bow. But I think the most impactful across the board for me was the first one. You know, the B2B sales environment. Yeah. It was almost like, you know, me and Lucas rocked up. We'd been at Siemens for, 4 months at that point, still trying to wrap our heads around this massive behemoth of an organization with the technological depth that we, you know, live in. And we didn't have to think about any of that. And it was, right, okay, your job is, as a salesperson, not necessarily fussed about what you're selling at this point. You know, this is what's important. Here are the mindsets. Here's why they're important. Here's why level 1 and 2 listening, you need to distinguish between the two. Introduction to challenger, introduction to spin selling, and so on. And why this new way of selling is important. I think, you know, having that right at the very start, almost to break and then remold us, is definitely massively impactful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so I think we're at 12:28, so I think I'm just going to wrap the session up. But thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Mike. That's been brilliant to hear from you. Really appreciate all your insights. And thank you to everyone as well who put questions in through the panel. And yeah, I hope you've all got, you know, enjoyed this and got something from it. So thanks very much.
Thank you for hosting us, Louise. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Mike, but I think, you know, it's a great opportunity for us to share these experiences. And something I always wished I had when I was looking for a role is somebody to speak to. So, you know, by all means, reach out to the Consalia teams or ourselves directly on LinkedIn if you have any other questions about what these schemes are like and what this course is like in particular. I've always got time to talk about our experiences.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much for your time. Completely agree with what Lucas said. Yeah, if anyone wants to find out a bit more about, you know, what it's like to be an apprentice, what it's like to manage that balance, add us on LinkedIn. We're not going anywhere, you know.
Yeah, that's
always happy to help.
That's the same from me, actually. If anybody wants to chat about ECP screenings and management of it and opportunities for growth, then yeah, I'm quite happy. Get involved. Okay.
Thank you all. That's wonderful. Brilliant. Okay. Bye now. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
thanks.
Yeah,
Bye now.
see you.
Bye.